Yu-Gi-Oh! Theory. Where are the previous protagonists in Arc 5? Let's see.
Hey, Internet, what is up? Today, I want to talk about these guys, and this show, and why these guys don't show up in this show.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was asking that. I was wondering why that was the case.
Arc 5's central plot revolves around an interdimensional war between the fusion dimension and all the other dimensions. As the good guys jump aimlessly from dimension to dimension, they run across people and places from previous series in the franchise. Pro Hogan, Jack Atlas, Kite Tenjo, Alexis Rhodes, and Aster Phoenix all make appearances throughout the series. Duel Academy, New Domino City, and Heartland all feature prominently. And throughout the show, there are little nods here and there to bits and pieces of the previous anime
Those are cards
series.
I know, yeah.
And of course, this raises a rather obvious question. Where in the hell are the protagonists of the previous Yu-Gi-Oh! Series? Well, the most obvious reason for Yugi, Jaden, Yusei, and Yuma not to appear in the series is that they would have undercut all credibility for Yuya Sakaki as the protagonist of his own series.
Yeah.
Seems like this just wouldn't have been all that tense if we knew that Yugi was playing
That
with
is a
puzzle
real
in
life
this room.
explanation.
The alternative, of course, would have been to nerf Yugi, Jaden, Yusei, and Yuma to the point of incompetence.
That would
so
also
that
be
Yugi could
bad
steal
for
the
them.
show and one up all of them. Show of hands for anyone who likes that idea. All around, keeping them out of Arc 5 was probably the best decision for everybody. But real-world logistics do not a good story make, and today I want to talk about the in-continuity reasons why these four do not make an appearance in Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. And to make a hypothesis on this subject, we need to know a little bit more about the world of Arc 5. In episode 126, we learn that the world began as one unified dimension. It wasn't split into the standard, fusion, synchro, and Xyz dimensions until a dueling lunatic named Zark decided that murdering people with a card game seemed like fun. Zark was somehow able to fuse with his 4 ace monsters and became a Tiamat-like dragon god who decided that it would be cool to blow up the entire planet.
Yeah, sounds cool,
After
right?
he pushed humanity to the brink of extinction, Rei Akaba used Deus Ex Machina nature cards to defeat him in a card game. The magical backlash of this split reality into 4 parallel dimensions, and both Zark and Rei's spirits were quad-sected and scattered across these new realities. Zark's spirit was housed in Yuya, Yuto, Yugo, and Yuri, while Rei was sealed within Zuzu, Lulu, Rin, and Selena. While it's
But they
never
have very different
100%
names.
clear why the dimensions divided the way they did when Rei defeated Zark, we do know a few things and can make a few safe assumptions. We know that the dimensions were divided by primary summoning method, with all knowledge of the other methods being erased. We also know that characters from different
That's so
points in the
weird.
original Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline exist simultaneously in different dimensions now. To me, this suggests that the dimensions were rebuilt with some degree of intelligent design. And here's
Really?
why. If reality had simply fractured as a result of the wild energies used in Zark and Rei's duel, it would have scattered randomly in every direction. The 4 new worlds would have all contained random bits and pieces and components of the original dimension. It's extremely unlikely that fusion, synchro, and Xyz energy would have been isolated to any one version of Earth, and it's equally unlikely that equal-sized pieces of Zark and Rei's spirits would have ended up in each one. Instead, we'd see 4 dimensions where all those powers are present to varying degrees. Different portions of Zark and Rei would have been scattered across each dimension without vessels, likely requiring them to find hosts like Atem and Astral had to in previous series. And since
Honestly,
most
that
of the
doesn't sound bad. That
population
sounds
had been
interesting.
wiped out, the new dimensions would have been scarcely populated, with the few survivors that were left scattered amongst all of them. But that isn't what happened. Not even close.
Why is the split exactly?
Why might that be? My theory is this.
Okay.
In the moments before and immediately following her death during her duel with Zark, Rei was at the absolute height of her power. With the energy of nature itself coursing through her, she briefly became an entity powerful enough to reshape space and time. However,
was
it's
her
important to note
design.
that she was not omnipotent, and she clearly didn't wield power over life and death. If she had that power, she would have been able to simply kill Zark and resurrect herself, or even prevent herself from dying in the first place. So with all of this great but still limited power, she hatched her plan to keep Zark from ever resurrecting. Rei intentionally split reality into 4 pieces and sent a quarter of Zark's soul to each. She knew that the Earth's population couldn't sustain itself across 4 dimensions, so she reached back through temporal space in order to bring forward the populations of Earth from different points in the past. The fusion dimension is populated with people from the 2010s, who lived during the events of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. The
That's so
Synchro
funny.
Dimensions people are from the 2030s or 40s, roughly around the time of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, and the Xyz Dimensions people came from the late 21st or early 22nd century, around the time of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. The standard dimension is where the population of the original dimension ended up, as evidenced by Leo Akiba's presence there. But since this reality was running low on people at the time, I suspect that people from the late 90s, early 2000s, around the time of Duel Monsters, appeared there as well. This would explain the technological regression from the days of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, and why the original Kaiba Corp duel discs were being used again until Leo Akiba reinvented his Arc System's Solid Vision duel discs. With the new dimensions complete, she wiped knowledge of all but the most prominent advanced summoning method from each new reality period in history, except for the standard dimension, where she took away all three. This was done, in part, to limit the amount of power that any of the Zark fragments could regain,
So this changed
to
with the
prevent
pendulum,
any other
I guess?
duelist from becoming as dangerous as Zark had been in the original dimension. With all of that done, she sent the 4 fragments of her own spirit to each dimension in order to shadow the 4 Zark fragments. But what does any of this have to do with Yugi, Jaden, Yusei, and Yuma? Fair question. Let's get to that now. These 4, at the end of their respective series, were among the most powerful duelists in history. If Rei had the power to move people through time and wanted to keep Zark's power in check in each new dimension, you would think she'd want these 4 heroes to be there to fight if any of the fragments began another rampage. And isn't it odd that despite the fact that Zark was a being of pure evil who was bent on global destruction, only Yuri retained any of his cruel and malicious behavior? Now you might say that all of his malevolence was consolidated in this one host, while all of his more positive qualities were distributed amongst Yuya, Yugioh, and Yuto. But I don't think so. If Yuya, Yuri, Yugioh, and Yuto make up the whole of Zark, that would suggest that Zark was only 25% negative qualities and 75%
that is clearly
positive.
not the case.
That doesn't sound right. Planet-conquering mass murder should add up to a little bit more than that. So where did the positive qualities demonstrated by Yuya, Yuto, and Yugioh come from? From these guys. That's right. I believe that when Rei rebuilt time and space after the fall of the original dimension, she knew that the fragments of Zark's spirit, left to their own devices, would corrupt whatever host they were born into. So to get around this problem, she found the 4 greatest heroes of Duel Monsters. Heroes who specialized in each of the newly formed dimensions' primary summoning method, and combined Zark's evil essence with their positive life force. Yugi Moto fused with the standard dimension fragment to become Yuya Sakaki, Jaden Yuki fused with the fusion dimension fragment to become Yuri, Yusei Fudo fused with the synchro dimension fragment to become Yugioh, and Yuya Tsukumo fused with the Xyz dimension fragment to become Yuto. And there are striking similarities between these protagonists from each series and their Arc 5 dimensional counterparts. Let's start with Yugi Moto and Yuya Sakaki. Both wear their school uniforms as their primary outfits throughout the series,
that doesn't mean
using their
anything.
jackets
No,
as
no, no,
rigid
no, no,
capes
no,
when
no, no.
dueling.
Okay, well,
Both worry about using their power responsibly and show concern and remorse when that power is abused.
Nah.
Yuya's depression and hesitation to continue dueling after Zark's influence resulted in a brutal victory over Iggy mirrors the self-doubt that Yugi demonstrated after
You
the
and
Pharaoh almost
Yusei
killed
aren't much
Kaiba
alike.
during Duelist Kingdom. And speaking of that duel with Kaiba, the way that Yugi stopped the
We'll
Pharaoh in
see.
order to save his opponent is very similar to the way that Yuya hesitates to face his opponents during the Friendship Cup, knowing that his
Friendship Cup.
victories will condemn others to lives of hard labor. Triumph isn't nearly as important as doing what's right.
This
The
is so
decks
weird.
they
This is
use
so
also
cursed.
feature a number of commonalities. Both run magician archetypes with secondary support for dragon-type monsters as integral parts of their core strategies. And both decks run adorable low-attack monsters with utility and support effects rather than the beatdown strategies their rivals employ. Then we take a look at Yugioh and Yusei Fudo. Out of everyone, these two share the most similarities to one another. Their backstories and
I love this. I love this. These are the ones that have most similarities, and the chat was saying like, no, those are nothing alike.
original motives are nearly identical, in fact.
Nearly
Both are orphans who
identical?
grew up in the satellite. Both built duel runners with their friends as a means of escaping the satellite, and went on to specialize in turbo dueling. As such, both developed similar skills as creative and somewhat daredevil riders, which they use to evade law enforcement when necessary. They both have similar disdain and disregard for the new Domino caste system, which they demonstrate with similar dismissive comments and behavior towards sector security. And while this might not be totally fair because Clearwing's Synchro Dragon originally belonged to Zark, It is worth noting that the ace monsters used by these two duelists
They can
are
yeah, backstories are very
incredibly
similar, but no
design.
personalities necessarily.
Moving along to Yuto and Yuma.
Yeah, we
This
didn't
is
think
the
about
most
personalities
difficult pair
there.
to find
Okay.
similarities in. Yuto does not share Yuma's carefree attitude or innate stupidity by any stretch of the imagination, but there are similarities. In addition to both playing decks that run large support for level 4 Xyz summoning, Yuto's post-war outfit appears to be a palette swap of the Heartland Duel Academy
palette
uniform that
swap.
Yuma is seen wearing
Swap.
throughout Zexal. And let's face it, in a war zone, a dress shirt and a necktie is an odd and impractical choice. Moreover, while Yuto's hair length and two-tone is inherited from Zark, he chooses to wear it in a manner that spikes up and outward, similar to Yuma. Yuto also shares Yuma's obsessive personality trait, though expressed very differently. Early on in Zexal, we see Yuma attempt various feats that he cannot successfully accomplish over and over and over again, to the point of ridiculousness, and he expresses that it's important to try no matter what. While Yuto doesn't seem to have the same difficulty in achieving goals on his own, we do see him acting obsessively and irrationally.
This guy looks and feels more like Yugi, like unironically. Like I really think so. So maybe we could say that there is like traits of every protagonist were also like same like part like it's like you know what I mean, like it's all mixed together, right? It's not like one to one. It's not like one to one. I feel like parts of like each protagonist were also like scattered into different parts of these like four guys, right? I don't know, or maybe those are just protagonists things, because they are also meant to be like the protagonists of their own stories and stuff, right? So I don't know. I'm not buying this theory. I don't know.
In the pursuit of Lulu and Duel Academy when he comes to the standard dimension. It is also worth pointing out that what few glimpses we get of the pre-war Yuto, we see a character who is far less self-serious and far more fun-loving than he is in the rest of Arc 5. I would speculate that the war with the fusion dimension hardened the less savvy and more laid-back character that Rei created into a more battle-weathered soul. And then there's Jaden Yuki and the fusion summoner Yuri.
Yeah, that's a little...
This is where I think Rei's plan might have had a minor flaw. How is it that the spirits of Yugi, Yusei, and Yuma could have been used to create benevolent beings like Yuya, Yugo, and Yuto, but Jaden's spirit went on to create a psychopath like Yuri?
King? Or, you know...
Well, fans who watched GX may remember that by the end of that story, Jaden's spirit was a conglomeration of different entities. His own soul is actually a reincarnation of the Supreme King, a being that was corrupted by the entity known as the Gentle Darkness. In Season 3 of GX, we see what happens when Jaden falls under the control of his darker half's influence. And it is not pretty. He commits atrocities against both friends and civilians, atrocities that would go on to haunt him for the rest of the show. But the Supreme King isn't the only being with a checkered past that Jaden is bonded with. There's also Yubel, their childhood friend who was corrupted by the Light of Destruction. Yubel is shown to have several sadistic qualities, delighting in the emotional torment she can inflict on others, just like Yuri. And to be clear, the Supreme King and Yubel aren't just some dark spirits or evil influences that temporarily affected Jaden. Jaden is the Supreme King's reincarnation. Their spirits are one and the same. Yeah. And at the conclusion of the Dimension World storyline, Jaden permanently fuses with Yubel, causing their souls to be bound together for all of time. These two are permanent taints upon Jaden's soul, taints that the fragment of Zark was able to exploit. And when it did, the boy that should have been the embodiment of fun-loving and good nature became a twisted and corrupted person, with a cruel and sadistic personality that gives Yami Merrick a run for his money. Not convinced? Well, let's take a look at the breakdown here.
I mean, to me, this makes perfect sense. This is the part that makes more sense to me. Obviously, the fusion guy is gonna be like the messed up one, right? That makes perfect sense. So his theory is that Rei had some power to move souls, but conveniently Zark didn't. Well, I don't see issue with that. It was the cards, right? There were like 4 cards that Rei used, and Zark didn't have those cards.
Though it's in a warped and demented manner, Yuri does demonstrate a love of having fun and a strong sense of humor, just like Jaden. He demonstrates pathologically sadistic traits, just like Yubel. He's cold, ruthless, and arrogant. He openly mocks his opponents, boasting of his superiority while mocking their incompetence, just like the Supreme King. Yuri is a complete fusion of all three. Still think that it's a bit of a stretch? What sort of deck do both Yubel and Yuri use?
Plants?
Vile, plant-based decks. And more importantly, what is the one unique card that Jaden and Yuri share with one another?
Super polymerization.
A card whose very creation was orchestrated by Yubel and the Supreme King in order to further their own malicious goals. When looking at all of the evidence, it's hard to conclude anything else. Yuri is the spiritual merger of Jaden Yuki, Yubel, the Supreme King, and Zark. Rei made a grave error in judgment when she sealed away a piece of her enemy in this seemingly fun-loving boy from Duel Academy. And this theory has one more potentially massive ramification
The
for
music
the
is being
franchise.
muted.
At the end of Arc 5, after the Lancers and Rei have defeated Zark for the second time, Yuya Sakaki is reborn in the Pendulum Dimension, with Yuri, Yugo, and Yuto all still inside of him. In his last duels, we see him reflecting on their spirits within him and battling with each of their ace monsters. But if my theory is correct, that would mean that Yugi Moto, Jaden Yuki, Yusei Fudo, and Yuma Tsukumo
Did you will plan
all
the
reside
creation
within
of
him
Super
as well.
Pony in the Japanese
When
version?
the
I have
curtain
no
falls
idea.
on Arc 5, Yuya represents the sum total of all 5 of these duelists, making him one of, if not the single most powerful duelist in the franchise. Sorry, Yugi, but it looks like there's a new king of games in town. Well, that's
That
my
is such
theory.
a
What do you think?
That's such a
Do you
weird thing to
agree?
say,
Do you
dude.
disagree? Are you
That's
sad
such
that
a
this
weird
would
thing
mean
to
that
say.
Yugi, Jaden, Yusei, and Yuma have effectively been written out of time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let me know if you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh content in the future. In any case, I will catch you in the next video. Bye!
I mean, I don't know. I like the theory, but I don't think it holds up. Maybe I'm missing things, right? Because I haven't like really watched everything. So I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong, right? But from my point of view right now, it feels like it doesn't like exactly hold up. I will say that there is clearly references from the previous protagonist, and obviously the what's his name, Yuri, the fusion guy, makes sense to be have like the most reference to Yubel, the Supreme King, and Jaden, because obviously, right? But I don't think that we could say like that they are like exactly like, because the other two are not like the other guys. Just because some fit the theory doesn't mean that all of them have to. I just feel like they are all kind of references to the previous protagonists. I think that makes sense. This video is 6-year-old? Yeah, this video is kind of old. I don't know if anything will change, honestly. I don't think there's new information that will help us here. But yeah. Anyways, I still appreciate the video. It was really good, really cool analysis. And thank you, chat, for recommending it. Yeah, thank you.